Hello, my friends, and welcome to the podcast where our goal is to remind you that amidst the chaos and craziness of the world today, there is still plenty of good that is worth shouting about. In each episode, we highlight the stories of another creator of good in the world. Nonprofit, for-profit, it doesn't matter. We know that when you use what you have to add to the world, we can make the world better. This is Creating Good with me, Matt Barnes. Let's create some good. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first real episode of Creating Good with Matt Barnes.
Yay, and Tiffany Pope.
Yes,
Or do you want me to say Anne? What am I supposed to say?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
Whatever.
Okay.
Whatever.
Well, you're like flaming me about it, and I don't know what to say. So this...
Flaming you about it. Oh, my gosh. I can't get on board with the new lingo.
Yeah.
That's how you know you're an old person.
Okay,
when you start going like, no, I can't.
No, there's actually newer lingo that's like Generation Alpha, and I'm like, what on
What's
earth?
Generation Alpha?
Your kids.
My kids are Generation Alpha?
Yes.
We've started the alphabet all over again.
Yes. It's like
I never understood
really weird.
why we skipped to Gen
Z.
X, which is me.
Gen X, yes.
And then for a second, it was Gen Y, and then they called them millennials.
Yes.
Like that group was going to be Gen Y. I remember.
Yeah.
And then this was before you were born, so don't act like you know.
Yeah, true.
And then it was like, no, they're millennials. And then they went back to the letters. So we had Gen Z.
Yep. That's me.
And now we're Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
But what happened to Alpha through what comes before X?
What does come before X?
Yes. W. Gen W.
Gen W.
Whiskey. I don't know. Like in the naval alphabet, in like that we use in flying. W
Oh, okay. So now
whiskey.
you're speaking in terms that I have no clue what you're saying.
Alpha, Bravo, Charlie.
Yeah,
Delta.
whatever.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So
Anyways.
I don't know what happened with all that. I don't know why we're talking about all
Who
this.
comes up with these
Man,
names?
we got on a tangent
Yeah, we did.
here.
Okay, let's jump into
This is our first real episode. We had, if you're wondering what happened to Nonprofit Connect, then that means you missed our bonus episode last week.
You missed the greatest episode ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where we laid out the vision for where we're going. So it's the same podcast you've loved, but now with a little more intention on just generally creating good. And so that's why we're calling it Creating Good. And it's really for nonprofits and just people who want to create good in the world. Yeah. We just realized that's what we care about. So technically, I guess this is our second episode of nonprofit.
True.
Man, now I'm getting the titles mixed up.
Yeah, we got
Creating Good.
We got to lock that down.
But it's our first real episode. Okay. So, and we have a rad guest today, and her name is Allyn Rose, and she is very, very cool. She is a breast cancer advocate, a professional speaker, a host, a political scholar. At 24, she was a Miss America contestant and made headlines across the globe because she made the controversial decision to undergo a prophylactic double mastectomy because she lost her mother, her grandmother, and her great aunt to breast cancer.
Oh, man.
So she decided, let's take care of this, make sure that doesn't happen to me.
Yeah.
Which I'm obviously a dude. And so I can't even fully comprehend all the things that go into that.
Yeah.
Identity and just so many parts go into that and making that decision.
So crazy.
So she is now advocating for people being as informed as they can be about that. She was the first woman with a mastectomy to model for the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition.
Oh, look at her. There we go.
Which is cool. And then she is the founder and CEO of the Previvor Foundation. And the Previvor Foundation is a global information hub for mastectomy previvors, survivors, and caretakers and their families as they navigate their breast health decisions. And they call it the Wikipedia of breast health.
I love that.
Which is so cool.
That's so cool.
I'd never heard the word Previvor. I think she made it up. I think she told me she made it up. But the idea of dealing with it ahead of time and to be a survivor kind of preemptively.
Yeah.
Which is, it's so cool. So she was great and so interesting and knowledgeable. I mean, I'm going to stop talking about her because now she can
She needs to talk. Yeah.
Herself.
She needs to do her thing.
Well, welcome to the podcast, Allyn Rose. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here. Very excited.
I'm excited to learn about you and hear what you're all about. And but before we do, we always start off with a segment we call 3 random questions. We've got a list of many, many random questions, and we randomly choose 3 for you. Are you ready?
All right. I'm a little scared, but ready to go.
Nah, nothing to be scared of here. All right. What is your favorite film of all time?
I would say it's a bit of a cult classic, but super, super niche down. It's called Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. And it was a movie that came out amidst a sea of other just, Oscar winners. So despite it having a lot of really incredible actors in it, it just sort of got swept under the rug a bit, but big, big fan.
Yeah, I don't think I ever saw it, but I remember that movie.
Yeah, it's Andy Garcia's the lead in it, and it's got some great lines in there. Christopher Walken's in the movie, just really fantastic. My dad and I quoted back and forth to each other, so
Well,
really, really dig
anything with
that one.
Christopher Walken is always good.
Yeah, it's a win.
Awesome. Okay. What was the first concert you went to?
I think it was Peter, Paul, and Mary.
Wow.
I went with my friend's probably stoner mom, and it was a very nice hippie experience, but I think that was the first. Probably a couple other embarrassing boy band things to follow, but
I'm sure,
that
yeah.
was a first live show.
My parents, when I was 4, they took me with them to my first concert, and I only remember it very like a snapshot, but it was Barry Manilow. And
Excellent.
and so many years of therapy after that, but
9
that
months
was
later, a sibling comes along.
yeah, that was my intro to live music. So, you know. And then finally, what food is your guilty pleasure?
I'm all about no limits when it comes to food. Everything kind of in moderation, but I'm a real like pizza and beer gal. So
Nice.
I'm living abroad in Germany. The beer here is incredible. We're close enough to Italy that we've got some Italian expats who come here, so you really just get the best of both worlds. And I know that's a little bit of a boring pick, but that's the one is my go-to all the time. Just a nice cool beer, nice piece of
Good
pizza.
pizza is good pizza. Like you can't do better. Like some people they're like they want the fancy restaurants, and sometimes you're just in the mood for a good
Oh, I
slice
can
of
be a
pizza.
foodie. We can go to a bougie Michelin
Sure,
star place, but a good pizza is real hard to top.
right? Exactly. All right. Well, you've passed the questions. You did well. I will continue the interview.
Appreciate it.
All right. So tell me your origin story. Tell me about you, and how you got to where you are, and what you're up to.
Sure. My mom's story really ignited mine. She was diagnosed with breast cancer for the first time in her 20s. She had a stage 3, really aggressive breast cancer, and she discovered it as a 20 something marathon runner, not the person that you would ever imagine would have breast cancer in their 20s. She was really feeling run down, felt a lump in her breast, went to the doctor, said, "Hey, there's something wrong with me, help." And they turned to her and said, "You're too young to have breast cancer. Come back and see us in 6 months. Stop
Oh
drinking so
man.
much coffee." So by the time she got back, got a screening, the tumors the size of a golf ball almost took her life. So I knew my mom almost my entire life with one breast. She was never able to reconstruct it. It was really radical mastectomy all the way down to the chest wall. Just a really terrible experience for somebody who wasn't married, didn't have kids, as a woman. So
Right.
much of your femininity is tied up in the way that you look. But she met my dad, who promised her that having one breast didn't phase him because he was a leg guy. So I come along a couple of years later, a good man. And breast cancer was really always part of the conversation because I learned that it wasn't just my mother, it was my grandmother, my great aunt, really all the women in my family on both sides had their lives impacted by breast cancer. And so it was just really part of life's conversation. Unfortunately, though, my dad kept begging my mom. He said, "Look, you've had unilateral mastectomy on one side. Let's get rid of the other one. It's a ticking time bomb." So, by the time she had made the decision to get it removed, she had another stage 3 breast cancer just kind of looming in the background. So I lost my mom when I was 16 and really spent the pinnacle years of my life without her. And as I approached my 20s, my dad came to me, sat me down, brought up the idea of having a preventative surgery based on this very long line of women who had died of breast cancer. And I said, "You're crazy. Why would I ever do that? I was a late bloomer. I just got these things, not getting rid of them." And he looked me straight in the eye and he said, "You're going to end up dead like your mom." And at the moment, I mean, really, at any moment, that was a pretty crass thing to say, but I think
Sure.
that I needed someone to be that direct and
Yeah.
honest with me to knock me out of that youthful mindset that I'm going to live to be 100 years old. I'm invincible. At 20 something, you're not thinking about a breast cancer diagnosis. So it really set my head in the right direction, knowing that I needed to be proactive, that tomorrow wasn't guaranteed. And so, long story short, I ended up having a prophylactic surgery. I had shared my surgery story as a Miss America contestant, and it just went internationally viral for whatever reason. I had shared it with a friend. She shared it with a friend. And before I knew it, it was the cover of People magazine. I was
Oh
on
man.
Fox and Friends, just really doing the media gamut. And it opened up this incredible opportunity to be really the mouthpiece for my generation when it came to preventive healthcare, particularly in the breast cancer space.
Yeah.
And, from there, I got to be the first woman to model for Sports Illustrated with a mastectomy, all these incredible opportunities that I just never thought were going to be in the cards for me. And after that happened, I realized there have been so many people who have helped me along the way. And I wanted to get into the nonprofit space. But as we all know, breast cancer is a very oversaturated market. And I didn't just want to add to the noise, I wanted
Sure.
to carve out my own niche. And I realized that there was just no information for women looking to prevent breast cancer instead
Right.
of beat it once they had it.
So you started the Previvor Foundation.
Exactly. So what the Previvor is just an information-based platform for women who are navigating a high risk of breast cancer. So that could be a couple of things. If you're someone like me, I've got a strong family history. I actually don't have a breast cancer gene, which a lot of doctors thought was very odd. So my family either has the worst luck in the world, or we just have a gene we can't
Wow.
test for yet.
Yeah.
So there are people like me, that's strong family history. You have people who have a breast cancer gene mutation, which can increase your likelihood of 87% of developing it in your lifetime. Not great odds.
Yeah.
So many women are opting to have preventative surgeries, and you can take that 87% risk down to 1%. Hell of a lot better odds.
Yeah.
And I just realized that there was no one helping women navigate those breast cancer journeys.
Yeah.
And then after you have a mastectomy, so many women in their 20s are doing it, and then they're going on to want to have children later, burdened with this idea of having a gene mutation they're going to now pass on to their kids. So you can undergo IVF, you can do genetic testing. It's really this platform that's taking you from A to Z to learn about the lifestyle options you have to prevent cancer and to prevent future generations from getting breast cancer.
That's so great. Wow. When did you start Previvor?
Previvor launched in 2019,
Okay.
so just really before the pandemic hit. But it has just grown to something that I never could have imagined, really creating this community of young women helping each other navigate this process. Because I know what it's like to be 26 years old. I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids. I'm choosing to remove my breasts to prevent a cancer that doesn't exist yet. It's something that people who aren't in this situation can't possibly wrap their mind around. But once you are in it, it's really helpful to have someone that can kind of hold your hand along the way. So we try to be that for them. We try to connect women with each other to help be community in that aspect, and really just try to keep a nonprofit platform that is continuing to evolve as this new generation of women are experiencing it and moving from their 20s to their 30s to their 40s.
That's amazing. Do you feel like I've done a lot of work and had conversations and in the IVF and infertility space? That's something that I have experience with my wife, and then we have friends that run a nonprofit supporting people going through that. And a lot of people in that space, it's helping them realize you're not alone. There's other people going through this, and kind of getting it to a place where it's something people feel like they can talk about because it's kind of this silent thing. Do you feel like is that a similar situation with this, where people are wrestling with this and they feel like maybe they don't have the support, or is it a different problem?
It's definitely still a taboo, which sort of blows my mind because I've always been an open book, open to talk about these things, and never felt any guilt or shame or bad feelings around talking about the decision to undergo IVF to have children. But once I did, and once I shared, it just opened up this entire community of women who had these sort of IVF Me Too stories.
Yeah.
And they were just flooding my inbox of, oh, hey, I'm going through this. Oh, actually, I'm on my third round of IUI. We're moving on to IVF.
Yep.
Hey, where did you source your medication from? All these sort of questions. And it was really just incredible to see that this is something that more and more people have access to, but it did give me pause and made me a little sad to realize how many women feel as if they're in the darkness and
Yeah.
they're alone going through the process. And I know for me, I shared it online with 50,000 people, but I still felt a little alone when I actually was going through the process. So I had to
Mm.
travel for IVF from Germany back to the US where I'm from. And I was doing shots in hotel rooms, on
Mhm.
transatlantic flights, in my car. Really just, it can be a humbling and challenging process. But I think that the conversation is starting to change because we have so many creators and nonprofits and celebrities who are really opening up that this is a very normal lived experience for women.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it is opening up, and there is the conversation, and yet it's also, what was it, Alabama or one state just outlawed it. So you've got, and you've got the Vatican spoke out recently and saying that they thought IVF was immoral or and all this. I'm going, wait, what? What's happening here?
Guys, it's really it's a tough thing. And so for someone like me, I have two children, thank God for, going through this process, but we have
Yeah,
one more embryo that's frozen right now. And under a lot of the new laws, I would be forced to transfer that final embryo,
yeah,
even if I didn't want or couldn't afford or
right,
for whatever reason, you know, was not willing to transfer that embryo. And
yeah.
I'm in the unique position where I only have one. There are so many women out there who have 12 embryos left. And what do you do in that sort
What
of
do you
scenario?
do?
Are you going
Yeah,
to force a woman to have 12 different IVF transfers to utilize all of the theoretical children that she may or
right,
may not
right,
have? It's
right.
just, it's really a mind-blowing thing. And, I can see both sides from a moral and ethical standpoint, but you just have to really look at it with some common sense. And I
Yeah.
don't think people are doing that.
No, no, definitely not. Do you feel like going back to the sort of preventative breast cancer side of things, do you feel like some of the same issues of isolation and not feeling like they have a place to process it? Like, is that an issue on that side of things as well, or do you feel like what's the main issue that people are facing there? Lack of information, or
I think the number one thing is lack of information. You can, of course, become a PhD in Dr. Google and find out everything that you need to find out, but
sure,
you shouldn't have to do that.
yeah,
And that was really what I said was I'm a very information driven person. I want to know all of the options. I'm willing and able to do that sort of deep dive, but most patients aren't, and they rely essentially on their physicians to give them all of that information.
sure,
And that doesn't happen in most cases. And what I was hearing was women would go into their doctor's office, they talk about having a prophylactic procedure, and the doctor would essentially just direct them towards what they specialize in and
mm,
not what was necessarily what's best for their body or their lifestyle. Or, we have a friend of mine who's an ultra marathoner. So the type of surgery that I would get as a professional couch potato is not the same that would be the best thing on her body. So that was really disconcerting to me. And so, in creating the platform, one of my main goals was to have something that women could take into a doctor's office. And when a
yeah,
doctor offered only one or two choices, they could say, well, actually, here's 16 other options. What about these? And if the doctor wasn't willing to address it with them, it's time to get a new doctor. So
yeah.
it
I mean,
was really sort of creating like a pocket advocacy for them.
exactly, and that's what I was gonna say is it I mean, it's giving them tools to advocate for themselves effectively with I mean, that's outside of this particular issue is a big issue in the medical field anyway, people, specifically women though, having to advocate for themselves because doctors, it's kinda give them "Well, I know better, just do what I tell you to do," and don't listen to feedback or the things that they're being told by their patients, and, I mean, I read those stories all the time, and it's a big issue in the medical field. So to equip people with that information that they can come in with and know what their options are and feel like, no, I can advocate for myself. That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the horror stories that I also heard from, the surgical side is you'd have women who maybe had a cancer diagnosis or went into this prophylactically and decided that they didn't want to reconstruct their breast. And they told their doctor, okay, I just like to be flat. I don't want to go through the whole process of a second surgery or having breast implants or, there's a lot of stuff that comes with it.
Sure.
And then they'd wake up from surgery with breast implants. And their
What?
doctor would just say, oh, well, I knew you'd regret it, so I just threw some in there anyway. And
That is unbelievable.
just, I mean, it's happened more than you could even imagine. And so you have situations like this. I just felt so passionate about putting women back in the driver's seat of their healthcare choices and making them feel as confident as they possibly could so that they didn't end up with a physician like that.
Yeah.
And they felt empowered and comfortable with the choice that they made and didn't look back later and said, I wish I knew that was a choice for me.
Wow. Are there consequences for those doctors in those situations? I mean, that's just insane to me that they could go
I
against their
mean, it's
wishes like that.
medical malpractice suit, of course, but then you also have to have a patient who's willing to undergo suing their physician, have the
Sure.
financial means to do that. It's a nightmare, but yeah, it's happened more than a handful of times, which is a handful of times too many.
Yes, that I can't even wow. That's like one of those things you hear about and you think, "Oh, that's like some wacko one-time, one-off doctor did something crazy." But
Right.
to find out that that's something that is taking place is really disturbing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just some, old wives' tale that people are legends sort of deal. And it's very scary that in 2024, that's something that could happen to a woman.
Right. Wow. Kind of shifting gears a little bit, what have been some of the biggest challenges for you in starting this nonprofit and getting going?
Well, I knew absolutely nothing. Zero experience in nonprofits, just from the very basic things of how do I set this up? What where do I even start? What documents do I need? What legal entity do I send things to? Just all of the paperwork and the tax background. That was a challenge for me. And I was really fortunate that I had a friend who had started a nonprofit and she was able to sort of help guide me along the way, send me some documents I could repurpose. So just from a very, standard technical standpoint, that was tough. And I think it's a
Yeah.
hurdle that a lot of people face. And it's a sort of barrier to entry. Um, but secondly was figuring out how to scale and if I wanted to scale because I'm somebody that's a bit of a control freak. I like to be involved in absolutely everything that's going on. And when you start to get bigger and you can't possibly do it all by yourself, you have to lessen the reins, find the right people who can help create the vision that you have for this thing that's your baby. And then on top of it, that opens a whole other thing of tax implications and hiring employees and doing all of that. So I think people look at nonprofits from the outside and say, "Oh, you just have this great idea. You want to help people, and you help people." But there's a lot of red tape that
Oh,
comes
yeah.
along with trying to do good.
Oh yeah, I tell people all the time because it's unfortunate. Unfortunately, I get to intercede a little bit here and there, but with people often going, seeing a problem that they care about, and going, okay, I'll just start a nonprofit to solve that, and like it's no big deal. And I'm like, no, it's like it's starting a business but harder, because you've got
Hmm. Hmm.
you've got all the business stuff. You still have to do like any business would, but on top of that, fundraising, and you have all the compliance stuff and the tax things. It's a lot of work, and that is, I think, why so many smaller nonprofits stay small, because
Hmm.
they start it and then they don't know how to take it anywhere, because it's like, oh, this is way harder than I thought it would be. How did you get past that? How did you where are you at now? How many employees and all that kind of stuff?
So I'm still very much in the thick of it. We're
Yeah.
still a nonprofit of one. I have a lot of great volunteers, a fabulous
Nice.
intern who I am actually hoping to hire at the end of this month. So she'll be our first sort of full time employee coming in. But we could have 10 employees at this point with the amount of stuff that I think that I'm doing to contribute. But I'm also just trying to get out of my own way. I think a lot of people who get into the founder space, um, they're perfectionists. They're so passionate about it. They want everything to be absolutely perfect. And so they have a starting issue because they are trying to create this beautiful platform around it before they scale up. And I'm just trying to get out of my own way and just throw a little bit of spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks and fix the things that need to be fixed once we
Sure.
get to that next level. But it's been really hard to, and I think another one to go back to your other point is allowing yourself to spend money, because when you don't have consistent funding going in, you're in the thick of fundraising all the time. It's so easy to not spend the money that you have raised because you're just there's a scarcity mindset of, oh, it's
Yep.
never going to come back in. That was a hard one. And then finally this past year or two, I've said, hey, no, okay, we have the freedom and flexibility. The whole point is to create more information and put it out there. So if that requires spending a little bit of money, let's do it. And it just really opened up incredible opportunities. We just partnered with Major League Baseball,
Nice.
incredible apparel company that's now donating $1 of every single sale that they have to us. And just taking that leap a bit can really
Yeah.
open doors and really send you to the next level.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, it's so critical, and I think I probably preach this on here way too much. Well, if people listen regularly, way too much, but the idea that, to make a nonprofit successful, you have to look at it the same way you would a business. You have to invest in it, and you have to invest in the things that make a business grow. And because
Hmm.
there's no difference from a business standpoint, there's no difference except you don't get to keep the profit at the end of the year. You roll it back into the company. You need to be profitable to grow. But we've created this, culture that thinks that nonprofits should run on a shoestring budget, and people should not get paid well, and which is just stupid. We're going, please come and solve the world's biggest problems, but you shouldn't do it with any resources. Just figure it out.
Right. And that was a hard thing for me too. I just had never paid myself because I thought, okay,
Yeah.
if I'm doing this out of the goodness of my heart, I just need to put every dime back into what I'm doing. And, you get to a point where you say, okay, well, if I'm going to be taking away time from my family, my real job,
Yeah.
and doing all of this, you also need to be compensated for your time. And that's the only way that you're not going to get burnt out and be unable to do the things you actually want and need to do.
Absolutely. And it gives you some sense of boundaries in some ways of where that ends and the rest of your life is the way that a normal job should. And obviously there's your passion and all of that. You're going to naturally probably give a little bit more, but to have that it's a psychological thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And you just have to make those difficult decisions, work through sort of the mental block when it comes to it. But if you can come out the other side, you're surviving, you find great people to work with, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. Have you heard of the I bring it up on here too much as well, but the documentary Uncharitable? It came out last year. I think it's available now for download or whatever, but you should check it out. It's really interesting look at the way that all the things that we've been sort of conditioned to believe nonprofits should be that are holding them back, and the things that need to change really, because
Interesting.
it's really really well done. Um it's like an hour and a half, but it's really really well done. I think it was directed by Jake Gyllenhaal's dad, oddly,
Huh.
and Edward Norton's
Well,
in
when I
it.
can
And
I can carve out an hour and a half with no kids, I'm all about it.
oh no,
Anything Edward Norton,
two-year
I'm
olds
in.
love it. 2-year-olds love it. It's it's riveting for them. It's right up there with Bluey and Blippi.
Correct.
And but so your nonprofit, is it based here in the States, or is it in Germany?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Okay,
it's based in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area.
got it.
I'm living here in Germany, so it's a little bit difficult navigating everything sort of
Yeah,
cross borders. But we were redid the brand identity for the nonprofit. We did an incredible photo shoot. I think we had 6 or 7 models from all different stages of somebody who hasn't had a surgery yet, someone who just had their surgery a week ago, and she was so incredible to come and model for us, still with surgical tape on her body.
oh wow.
Women who have gone through the process, women who have navigated breast cancer, and it was just incredible. And sometimes I think I'm like, man, I'm literally crossing an ocean doing all of these things. It's just amazing that the world we live in allows you to do that now.
It is crazy. I mean, it's crazy that I can easily interview you from across the world like this, and
Exactly.
not even have to leave my office, or you're gonna not even have to leave your home.
Hmm.
Just no problem.
Yeah, every
Um,
time I fly over to see my family, I'll be walking. My brother lives in DuPont Circle in DC, and I'm just walking through DuPont. I'm like, man, 7 hours ago, I was on another continent. The world is crazy.
have you with the foundation, have you done much collaborations with other nonprofits? Are there opportunities for that?
So certainly in this space, there's amazing opportunities to collaborate, and I'm looking at building that out now. Especially now that we're moving past only being a resource for women who are navigating maybe a genetic mutation and having a mastectomy, getting into the IVF space. There are so many great nonprofits that award grants for, let's say, a woman is in her 20s, she's diagnosed with breast cancer, she has to go through chemo. In doing that, you can really just destroy your fertility. So maybe she'd like to freeze her eggs before she starts
Yeah.
treatment. So to be able to partner with organizations, there's a great one called Chick Mission, kind of finding synergies like that where you're teaching women about, hey, this is an option for you, and then being able to direct them where there's a resource that can help them pay for it.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, instantly, there's two that I've worked with a little bit. One called Mission Plasticos, and they do reconstructive surgeries for people throughout the world that have different deformities or different situations where they can't afford the reconstruction, but including women who have had the mastectomies and don't have the funds to and want to have them replaced, but don't have the funds for that.
Hmm.
And then for the IVF, one we've done some video work with, Uniquely Knitted, and they work with providing support for people going through IVF or going through infertility, and just being able to give them a place to process and be able to learn about it and realize they're not alone in that. It's one of the big things that we're trying to do is help nonprofits realize that there is power in collaboration, because we can't
Hmm.
all do everything alone. And because of that scarcity mindset, a lot of times nonprofits are afraid to collaborate. Like, oh well,
Yes.
if my donors see that, maybe they'll end up going over there and stop giving me their money. And it's just fear based. The reality is, people love it when they see people coming together to solve problems, and we can do so much more.
And it allows you to niche down too. I mean, you want to, I think in the nonprofit space, sometimes we want to serve too many masters so that you're really being expansive and helping as many people as possible. But that's not always the most efficient way of doing things. And so
Right.
for us, I started out really wanting to kind of cover the entire breast cancer space. I didn't want anybody to feel excluded. And then I realized, no, let focus, stupid. This do what you know. I know previvorship. That's my experience. It's a big enough chunk of people that need this information. And if I'm trying to continuously step one level out, I'm
Yeah.
never going to be able to help the people in that core space.
Yeah.
So that was something I also had to learn, to collaboration is okay. Find other organizations that fill in the gaps that you can't necessarily address with yours.
Yeah. Did you coin the term Previvor? I've never heard that before. I like that.
No, so it was coined in the early 2000s as somebody who survived a genetic predisposition to cancer. So it was actually, I think, somebody popped it into a forum there's an organization called Force. And they sort of asked, hey, what would you call somebody who has a genetic predisposition to cancer? So the word Previvor came up, and people just started calling me the Previvor in the community because I was the person that was sort of talking it, like, oh, it's
Yeah.
my breast friend. She's giving me all the information about my breast health. So when I was thinking about what I wanted to do, I said, what, the Previvor makes sense because it's my story, it's their story, it's our story. And,
Yeah.
everybody in this space, like we're the Previvor.
That's awesome. Do you have any last bits of wisdom or words of advice for anyone out there in the nonprofit space that you just would love to share?
It's like we talked about earlier, just jump in and get started. It is so easy to be paralyzed at the beginning, and I am so guilty of that. I'm a little bit ADHD, and I'm one of those types of people that has these grandiose ideas. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I start things, I end things. I always want to be stimulated by something new, but I get in that paralysis state of doing all of the work to create this first sort of idea and then not take it to the next level. And I think it's very easy to do that in the nonprofit space. You want to help people. Then once you come up against this wall of legal paperwork, what
Yep.
have you, it stops you. So, if you have to outsource all of that stuff, it's not in your wheelhouse, do it. Just get your hands dirty and start the process.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, thank you so much. A few last questions that we always ask as we wrap up. Is there somebody in the nonprofit space that you really look up to that you would love to take to lunch?
Absolutely. I actually just got to have lunch with her about
Oh,
2 weeks ago, which was incredible. And I have to throw her out her. Her name is Crystal Barter. She started the Pink Hope Foundation in Australia. And she was really one of the first women in the space to share having a prophylactic mastectomy. And I have followed her for years. This was prior to Angelina Jolie going public with her decision. And she has changed incredible amounts of legislation in Australia that's now impacting the world. She's really continue to pivot and start new businesses and really just impact women and women and men in the preventive healthcare space. And just being able to pick her brain, I've looked to her as a mentor over the years, and to be able to actually get to spend some time with her in person, have lunch, sit down, that was incredible.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And finally, what in your job brings you the most joy?
It is the personal stories of women who reach out to me, and of course they're always so kind, like, "Oh, you've helped me," or "You saved my life," or "You've done it." And I've done none of that. These people who are going through this, they're making the difficult decisions. They've saved their lives. But you have these special moments where I got two stories that have always really touched me. One woman reached out, and every month I do these reminders on Instagram for women to do self-breast exams. And I realized that so many women were telling them to do that, but not teaching them how to do it. And so I would just start making these silly little videos showing women how to do it. And this woman slid in my DMs and she said, "So I get your really annoying videos pop up on my feed every month." She goes, "I used to always sort of eye roll at them, like, yeah, yeah, okay, I'll get around to it." She goes, "Something just stuck in my head though. I just turned 40, told my doctor, like, okay, let's get the mammogram. I've been putting it off." And she goes, "I just found out I have a very early stage cancer." She said, "I never would have gone to the doctor. I never would have pushed for this mammogram. I probably wouldn't have found my breast cancer and I might be dead." And so she's like, "It was just your stupid little videos that you post online, but it might have saved my life." And so getting something like that just gives you chills. And
Yeah.
another one I got about a year ago was I started posting about my IVF journey and going through genetic testing and, telling people all of this very scientific information, but granulated it down as much as I could. And she said, "I have the breast cancer gene mutation. I got married. My husband and I had decided we didn't want to have children because we didn't want to pass this on to them. And now hearing that you can do IVF and you can do genetic testing, now my husband and I can have children. I just had no idea that technology even existed."
Yeah.
And so to have somebody who just thought, "I can't have kids because I don't want to pass this deadly mutation onto them," and now they have this whole new lease on life and
Yeah.
the trajectory of their lives have changed, it just makes you realize how powerful the internet is and just the power of sharing your story and where it could take you.
Yeah. For all the bad and crap that social media can do and the internet, there's still good to
Yeah.
be had there if we can harness it the right way. And the great thing too, that a lot of people don't realize with IVF and the genetic testing and all that is if you do that, it also increases the odds of the embryos taking, and
Exactly.
the
Exactly.
transfer actually sticking, which I mean, you go from like something like 20% to 80 to 90%, which is, I mean, that's huge.
Much better odds. Yeah. When you're going
Yeah,
through something as emotional and expensive as IVF, you want
absolutely.
to increase those odds.
Yeah, gone are the days where you got to put 5 in and hope to get 1, and then you end up,
Then you're Octobomb.
exactly, exactly. I had a friend who they put 2 embryos in and one of them split, so they ended up with triplets, and,
Mm.
they were like, "Okay," so
Not what we expected.
not what they expected, but, worked out, but and they're great, but, and in fact, they were the triplets in the last Wes Anderson movie. But,
Oh my God, how cool.
yeah, and I think they 2 of them play Meredith Grey's daughter on Grey's Anatomy, and, yeah, they're getting to do some cool stuff, but, I mean, you just never see that stuff coming, but, things have changed, and there's a lot of opportunities there to make it a different process than it used to be, where it was a lot more risky and blinder, and, now and the added benefits of knowing that you can screen for these things ahead of time. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel very fortunate.
So, Allyn, where can people find more information about you and your organization?
So for the Previvor, we're at theprevivor.org and
Okay.
across all platforms. And then if you want to reach out to me, I say my DMs are always open. It's at Allyn Rose everywhere online, ALLYNROSE. And yeah, no question too intimate. I'm happy to help and happy to chat.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for doing this, Allyn. It's been really great.
Wonderful. Great chatting with you.
Creating Good with Matt Barnes is recorded at Rogue Collective in beautiful Newport Beach, California. It's hosted and executive produced by me, Matt Barnes, with an assist by my chaos coordinator, Tiffany Pope. Production is by our amazing friends over at Fame, the B2B podcast agency, along with Belinda Carter-Thompson and the team here at Rogue Creatives. Production lead is Mike Love at Fame. Writing is by Will Ainsley at Fame and Matt Barnes and Taylor Bolanos of Rogue Creatives. Miguel Mendoza of Fame is our audio editor, and Arslan Yacoub from Fame is our video editor. Creative direction and design is overseen by Corey Hill of Rogue Creatives. Our artwork is designed by the Rogue Creatives team and Rufino Mejia of Fame. Theme music is composed and performed by Jared Atherton of Chapters. Marcus Ponta and Mike Love of Fame do our booking and guest relations. Huge thanks to our amazing guests for joining us for this episode, and thank you to all of you incredible listeners for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, and if you're still listening at this point, I'm assuming you did, don't forget to help us spread some good by giving us a good or great review. Preferably the 5 stars kind with really nice words, telling us how much you loved it, telling everybody else how much you loved it. Also, tell your friends and subscribe so we can come straight into your potholes each and every time we have a new episode. For more information about Creating Good or to join us at a live event in Orange County, California, visit our website at creatinggood.co. We'll catch you next time. This has been a Rogue Creatives production.